listening to the Blue Skies Leadership Podcast, featuring discussions with international school leaders about the future of education. The podcast embodies the spirit of reciprocity by sharing strategies and change initiatives from leading schools around the world. Here are your hosts, Dan Kerr and Daniel Mendes.
So, Daniel, I was walking into work today and the sunrise was on fire. The most beautiful colors, orange, red, yellow, pink.
I love a beautiful sunrise like that.
Oh, it took my breath away, and it made me reflect on how sometimes as leaders or as teachers, anybody in education, we get really, really busy and we forget to sort of stop and take a look at the beauty that is all around us all the time, everywhere. And I think this really kind of shook me wide awake and set me on the mood today to slow down a little bit and enjoy those moments with kids and moments with teachers that bring so much joy. And I'm just really cognizant to slow down a little bit as we speed through the third quarter of the year.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Dow. I'm actually very conscious as of late to be a little bit more still and to appreciate those moments, especially with my kids growing up so quickly. You know, they're in that age where there's so much is changing, and also in my life, in my work life, in terms of appreciating every moment, every relationship that I have with teachers and appreciating what they bring to the work that we do in collaboration. I do love a beautiful sky and just sitting there and just in awe of what we get to experience every single day.
Yeah, we're fortunate, man. The power of moments. Anyway, a great start.
What if we could revolutionize education, not just tweak it around the edges? Today, we're talking to a leader who's not afraid to ask that question.
We are excited to have Mr. Richard Boerner, the superintendent of Graded, the American School of Sao Paulo, who has been shaking up the educational world for over 30 years.
Richard's journey is impressive. Before his transformative work at Graded, he served in key leadership roles at the Korea International School and the American International School of Dhaka. But at Graded, he made waves by launching the Graded Learning Lab, embedding the science of learning into everyday practice and earning the 2023 AAIE Dr. Keith Miller International Innovation Leadership Award.
Yeah, now as CEO of TrueFit Talent, he's revolutionizing talent acquisition by using technology to eliminate bias and to identify top talent. And he's a recent recipient of the AAIE Hall of Fame Award. Congratulations, Richard. Welcome to our show.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Daniel. It's an honor to be on the show, and I appreciate the accolades, but really the significant recognition is shared with everybody I've had the pleasure of getting to work with overseas for 20 plus years. It's been a remarkable journey. Yeah,
I remember when we first met at Graded back at Innovate. Man, it must have been like 2015. It's been fun to watch your journey since then. So, hey, listen, why don't we jump right in? And we start every guest with the similar question. So I thought I'd just throw it to you now. And that's, what does a blue sky vision of school look like for you, Rich? Like, where is the world of international school heading? Or maybe more specifically, where should it be heading? And what should we all be prioritizing to bring this vision to life? What do you think about that?
First and foremost, I appreciate the idea of a blue sky vision. Congratulations on the naming of your podcast, because I think it sends a sense of opportunity and a vision of growth and progress. So that fires me up. I'm excited about that. So as I thought about that, as you just said that, what really comes to mind for me is this idea of endless opportunity met with realized potential. And I'd like to believe the vision of Graded has actualized that. But I know that our school and your school and others still have much work to do so that every child has a blue sky day every day. But certainly that optimism of hope that we are providing moments of clarity, of sunshine and optimism in kids' lives as they build out what their future is going to look like in the kind of world we're living in today. And that's no short order for us, right? And so when I think about where's international school heading, I want to say, and I'll certainly frame this in a way, hopefully, that gets at the point, and not dire, but I want to bring home some concern that we have work to do to meet the needs of tomorrow, and we can't wait for tomorrow to do it. I see us as incredibly privileged places around this world to spur innovation, and that if not us, then who? And so I think it's incumbent upon us to be pushing on edges to reform what has been a quality experience for decades and centuries, but may not be as relevant as we want it to imagine it to be for a future that is changing as rapidly as it is. When I think about that, I often describe this, and perhaps we'll talk about this later in the podcast, this idea of moments of opportunity and moments of friction, that these things coexist for us. In fact, these pull and push tensions exist in our schools. And what our job is, as we think about the future in international education, is to bring to bear, what are we going to do today to set up tomorrow to be relevant for young people? And I do believe that if we remain stagnant in schools that do remain stagnant, probably for the first time in maybe 100 years, schools are risking their actual existence. The irrelevance of their education practice, if it doesn't adapt and move forward, is at question. And just look at the advances that are happening in technology today and what that potential replacement could look like. We owe it to ourselves to think differently and be progressive and bold about what might be necessary. And I don't say that to be dire, but more to say, how do we create a space for this opportunity to discuss new ways and new approaches? And many people have been talking about opportunities for many years. And we sit back and then we end up still in rows and in places where we don't see significant change, and desks and classrooms exist in similar spaces and places, and time doesn't get addressed in the ways it potentially could. But I think we're up against a precipice of change coming. I liken the conversation to the strategic planning processes of the past, a 5-year plan. If any school is building a 5-year plan that doesn't have 1-year plans built in, I think you're risking relevance. We need to be moving much more agilely in a way that is adaptive to the needs that are changing so rapidly in our space. I have lots of thoughts about where we should go and how we should get there as well.
Yeah, thanks for that. I really like the way you framed that around two things, urgency and optimism and hope. I think there is a compelling movement that's happening now with a paradigm shift across all schools. And to have that sense of urgency bring us to movement and to have that sense of optimism to help us get it there, I think is the right approach. So thank you for sharing that.
Schools need to be relevant. They need to be moving forward. I hear a sense of urgency in your voice as well. This is not something that we can sit on and just allow to happen in the next 5 years. It has to happen now. What are the questions that we need to address today in order to move us forward? So I really appreciate that. Being an international educator for many years, I've followed your school. One thing that I'd love to hear more about is some of the initiatives that are happening at Graded, because you have something called the Learning Lab, and it's been around for a few years. And I'd love to hear not only how it came about, but also what has come out of it.
I appreciate you reflecting back on that origin that really began in Genesis in 2019 of what we hoped would be a transformation in the way we had students learn and approaches to learning. And I mean that through the sense of really looking at the science of learning. How does the brain actually learn most effectively? And it's been 30 plus years, 40 years since we've actually understood this science, but it hadn't been translated into daily practice for educators until recently. And so we took that opportunity to say, well, if we know what best practices look like when it comes to cognitive science and neuroscience and the way the brain works, could we apply that on scale to students in kindergarten classrooms and 5th grade classrooms and 8th grade classrooms and 11th grade classrooms? And if we come up with what those strategies are, and I've often likened it to a tool belt. And so I've got all these tools, and all of these are scientifically proven strategies to enhance my learning. What tool do I use when? And how do I know when that tool is to be deployed most effectively? If we could train teachers on what those tools were and then help students understand when to use them most effectively, we should see learning flourish. We should see students be able to describe learning in ways that they hadn't before. And 6 years on, since that journey began in 2019, was our first think tank event where we really questioned ourselves to ask ourselves, what is it we need to do to be an exceptional school from a very good position? And I argue for schools that are thinking about innovation and change, one of the most optimal moments to make change is when you're in a position of strength. not actually when you're in a position of weakness, because then you have capacity to grow and to build and adapt. When we're in a position of weakness, we're often reacting and we're trying to grab at things to help claw us out of this low period. Is sometimes counterintuitive because we tend to react late to problems and we tend to want to solve things after they've already become so significant that it's hard for us to make sense of. Anyways, at Graded, we tried to make that effort happen on scale and through a process really designed by our own team. We built our own curriculum and we essentially brought teachers through an experience to retrain them on a process and a set of skills. Not that none of the skills existed already, but the language wasn't coherent, that the commonality in what we understood about the science of learning wasn't cross-divisional and understood through all the faculty. What we see now is a series of indicators across our learning principles where we can actually point to strategies and approaches we witness and see in teachers and in students on a daily basis. And what we envision for the next stage in this work is imagine that, so you're in a high school economics classroom and a student had a learning experience, a unit of inquiry, whatever it might be. They need to show some evidence of that learning. In our high school, we call it evidence of learning. We don't call it assessments. And when they submit that evidence of learning, they can link back to those indicators to say, here's the strategies and tools, science-based strategies and tools I used to leverage my understanding of that evidence and prove that I know those things. And then they can provide a summary narrative of that and imagine the teacher giving feedback on that, on the actual process of learning rather than on the result of the learning.
Right.
And how impactful that can be. Those are the kinds of innovations that we've been trying to build into the fabric and the DNA of the school on a daily basis.
I can hear the language transforming the education at your school. Evidence of learning is very simple. Show me what you've learned.
Yeah.
Rich, so listen, can I bring you back to a couple of weeks ago when you were at AAIE? And I know you brought this conversation together with people on a global scale. You had a think tank over a couple of days. And I was wondering if you could talk to us about some of that exciting work and maybe what themes were discussed, maybe what innovations were shared, and potentially what commitments were made by a group of global leaders.
Yeah, absolutely. Those 2 days were some of the most memorable I've had in some time. What we had aspired to do was essentially take the process that we'd experienced at Graded over a couple of a day period and help educators and schools understand how to accelerate scale and innovation. Coming back to what I was sharing in the beginning of the conversation, to me, the process of change and the way in which we consider strategy development in schools is slow. It is thoughtful, but rarely does it get at the edges of the need. And so all too often, certainly in my own experience, the strategic plans that I have implemented and developed and considered fall in the traditional buckets that we've all seen. There's a fiscal plan, there's a social emotional plan, there's an academic plan, there might be a buildings plan consideration, and all those things are valid and all those things are absolutely necessary, but they're not moving the needle. They're not changing the fabric of the value proposition for students. What we aspire to do, and an organization that I'm partnering with, is a group called Education Accelerated. And these are a group of individuals that are steadfast and dedicated to helping create innovation on scale. And so what we did is the facilitator, David Palumbo, and I took 40 leaders from 6 continents around the world through a process, what we call the fusion process. And this is a way to unpack and consider the current state of your institution, what we call the what is phase, and then process that status to understand the context of what you're living in so that you can then move to a what could be. And this is really that white space moment where we really start to envision what's possible. And when we did that with individuals, what resonated with people was rarely do you give yourself the gift of 2 uninterrupted days to sit with thoughtful leaders from around the world with a white piece of canvas and design possibilities that can actually impact students' lives.
Yeah, that is a gift.
And so it was a gift for us to facilitate the conversation because what came of it, while we were really simulating a process for schools to use and consider, were actually strategies and solutions, remarkable solutions. Now, whether those turn into actual impactful realities, I don't know. But the idea was in a 2-day period, you could work through a process from what is and what could be to what should be, and then how it will be, using a variety of protocols that we've developed, accelerated an opportunity for people, and importantly, creates a space for vulnerability. We use moments in that time to sit and talk about our moments of friction within our own context and the moments of opportunity that we see, and how those are kind of the two sides of the same coin. And it depends on which side we flip it to or how we approach a solution. So for example, one simple solution we came up with was the idea that we should build a network of teacher residency development programs in our international schools so we grow our own teachers and we're not reliant on the external world to fill our vacancies. Now, that's a very different construct and model, but imagine the talent within your own country that's inside your school that aspires to be educators. If they were mentored and grown amongst international schools over a period of years and certified by a body to be certified educators, wouldn't they be well trained? Do we believe that the ways that are traditionally preparing teachers in schools and universities are preparing teachers for tomorrow, that you go to school and learn things for 4 years and spend 6 weeks, maybe 3 months teaching? Rather, how about a residency model that looks more like a medical residency? We're actually embedded in practice and learning professionally, maybe online part-time, and yet you're in class, in residence with a master teacher learning and growing over a period of 4 years. I would argue the latter would create a much, much more accomplished educator. That was just one example of many that came from the think tank, just in a 2-day sprint experience.
What I'm hearing you say, just having those 2 days thinking about the system rather than working within the system, when you're in that building and you're dealing with the pressures of business, the academics, everything like that, you don't have time to think of ideas like this and bring other people around to formulate such a wonderful idea and to stretch your thinking. Being able to stretch what can be, what could be is so important.
Yeah, that was only one example that you gave us. I'm sure there were several.
Just to provide a little more color on that, we talked about the role of the teacher. In 3 years, we challenged ourselves to ask, who will be delivering content in your classroom? And it doesn't mean we're replacing the teacher, but will the role fundamentally change from the deliverer of content to the architect of learning, to the diagnostician of learning, to the coach of learning, rather than the content deliverer, knowing what AI will be able to do and how it will be able to level that learning to literally to students' lexile reading levels and to other ways in which they achieve and grow. So it's personalized and customized. And then that sage on the stage isn't moving to a guide on the side at all. It's moving to a collaborator and an involved partner in support of learning as a triad with that student and with that augmented assistance. Those are, I think, real realities that we're seeing in some of the newest AI models coming forward. And we need to be paying attention to that and leveraging it rather than closing our eyes to the traditional ways in which we've taught and say, well, in the purest sense of education, that's some form of violation. No, there's a place for it. We just need to harness that place. And if we lead that conversation, for example, we're well adept as educators to craft learning experience for students. We can do it thoughtfully.
That makes me think of, and Daniel and I often talk about this, and I'm sure you'd agree, that it opens up space for that relationship building piece, which is going to be so important between the teacher and student, and just relationships in general as we move forward into this sort of great unknown of how AI and technology is going to take us. That relationship piece, that social emotional piece is really going to be highlighted. Mm-hmm. I think that's an exciting opportunity for us to double down on that. Listen, can I steer us towards something that's also very exciting? And I know that you've been out there on LinkedIn about this, but you have a really exciting new adventure coming your way, I think, with TrueFit Talent. I was wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about that. And the question is sort of what's happening with TrueFit Talent that you'd like to highlight? And maybe what's the why behind this initiative? Like, is it a response to the international school world? How is it going so far? Gaining momentum around the globe? Like, tell us a little bit about that new initiative for you.
Sure. And thanks for the opportunity to share. TrueFit Talent is something really at the core of my value structure. And it comes from a lot of experience. And I think you probably, hopefully, can feel some of the pain points that I'll share about practices in hiring, both from the experience of not receiving opportunities and jobs. And certainly I've been very blessed to stay afloat at Graded for 10 years, but I've lost more jobs than I've ever gained in my life on a magnitude of scale. And yet I don't know why.
Yep.
I have some assumptions to it, but I really don't know why. And I think that storyline is true for many others around the world, whether you're a teacher, a middle-level leader, or a superintendent, or whomever, is we begin to think about the ways in which we recruit. 20 years ago, when I moved into international education, the same exact processes are evident today. And I don't say that in a cynical way or negatively. Many of them have been very successful. And I've been part of hiring wonderful people. But there's all too often moments and times, what I'll call great talent lands in bad fits. You have great people that are matched to organizations that don't need that talent or don't understand what that talent is or didn't understand each other. And we put ourselves through these really painful experiences where we lose momentum, we lose trust in our organizations, we spend a lot of money, and then we're cycling people through very difficult experiences. And so TrueFit Talent's aim is to really find how can we get at improving the fit between an organization and an individual? And what metrics could we possibly use to measure things in a different and novel way? And so one of the things that we questioned ourselves about was our own CVs. What is the value of a resume? It lists the college I went to, it lists the schools I was at, and it lists the things I claimed I did. Now, I'm not suggesting that those things aren't real. They are real. But what you don't know behind the resume is what's the impact of the things that I listed. So on my resume, I think twice in two different schools, maybe all three of the international schools I have been at, I list that I was involved in developing a comprehensive strategic plan that led to blah, blah, blah. What you don't know behind that plan was what was my role in it? What impact did it have? Did it actually change student learning? Were there improvements that came from it? And you may or may not be able to get that out of an interview. Certainly, you could ask me some questions about it. But what evidence do you have that the resume speaks to success or impact? And so we asked ourselves, okay, if that's a question mark that's fair, what about the cover letter? Well, the cover letter is certainly gives you a sense of your ability to write, but then the question becomes who's writing it today? And then what impact is behind the words that you suggest you say? What we did is we began to think about what are the inputs that we could consider differently than the inputs today that would lead to perhaps a better analysis of somebody's actual impact. And importantly, that could help maybe uplift the talent of those who are getting bypassed. There's a cringy couple of words that I really struggle with that we use often in international education called tier one schools. What in the world is a tier one school? I dare someone to define it in any way of substance. There are great educators and great leaders in every school all over this world. Yet we often hear, well, we hire from tier one schools. Well, so what? Just because I work somewhere doesn't mean I made impact where I worked. And that's true of the college I went to, the people I know, and those are all biases. And sometimes those biases lead to really great results because there are a lot of great people at a lot of great schools doing a lot of great work and they should get promoted and they should get opportunities. But what's on the cutting room floor of all the people that have tremendous talent that don't get access because I haven't heard of that school before? I'm unfamiliar with where they went to school, or they're from a different country I'm familiar with. And so we asked ourselves, well, if we could find a way to mitigate that bias and have a clean landscape of data, would schools then see the data differently? And then would they make different decisions? And so what our platform does is it analyzes things like artifacts of impact. So these are actual results of the things on your resume we require you to upload. And we use a specific algorithm through AI to measure and monitor those against 5 talents. So these are things like strategy, judgment, decision-making, social emotional acumen, people skills. And we have built an empirical study called the leadership archetype process that actually measures the success of leaders in the industry and their best talents and skills and creates an archetype of kind of what those best attributes look like. And then as individuals map themselves to that, they can see where they're similarities are and their growth areas are towards those archetypes. We take individuals through role play simulations where you have this live interactive experience with an AI bot to look at your judgment and decision making. We take individuals and candidates through polarity assessments, looking at two opposing strengths to see where your default leadership style is. And the reason we do that is we're looking for fit. If we know that an organization is doing those same analyses and we require them to do so, they're going to get a sense of these are the kinds of attributes I need in this next middle school principal, or I need in this team to work together. We'll talk about that in a second, how we do a team analysis. But we map and measure the actual leadership style approaches of the individuals to the organization's desired state. And we can create a highly reliable match fit. That creates an opportunity before you even interview anybody. You have a wealth of information that you didn't have before in a CV and a cover letter. And you know what the beauty of it is all of it's anonymized. So you don't know who you're looking at yet. You're looking at a series of individuals with a series of ratings and scores. You can dive deep into their data. You can read the report about their analysis of their skills and strategy or people acumen, those kinds of things. And then eventually when you decide to put them into your interview pool or who you're going to look at in your talent match, then you get to see who they are. And so that's where we try to approach area of mitigation of bias.
The thing about that really resonates with me, and you've been through this and so has Daniel and so have I, is that sometimes when you apply for work or jobs, you get knocked back simply because maybe you don't have the right experience bucket. And that seems to drive things. And this can take the person who has impact in certain areas, and you can see how those skills and talents could be scalable at a different level. And if I can use a sports analogy, I'm thinking about maybe instead of drafting the 4-year seasoned college player who's going to be very good at the NBA level, you hire a Kobe Bryant at a high school, right? Like you have the person who has the skill set and who's going to impact deeply. They just need a little bit of experience, but with the right people around them, they are going to explode into the person that organization needs.
My wife and Dan, they spend a lot of time recruiting, and you were talking about how recruiting's changed so much. Now it's a lot's done online. One of the things my wife does is profile the right candidate for that team, that department, and you're doing that for schools, for people. Normally they'll say, my math department has highly experienced math teachers and they're predominantly male. Let's try to target a female and it could be someone with less experience because we have the experience within the department, but you're tailoring the position to bring either balance to the team. Am I on the right track?
100%. We like to take it even a step further. What some schools are doing with us as they ready to open positions, they're analyzing their teams. So what we do is we come in and have each of the existing members of the team complete what we call our True You profile. And so they go through the battery of assessments that I described, and it gives them an analysis and a report. And then we run what's called a True Team comparator report. And the comparator report is not a judgment of one against another. It's a composite of the mapping of a group, whether that be a senior leadership group, a middle school math department, HR department. And then you can see where your strengths and gaps lie, not just a personality profile, but real substance, impact. Who's really good at judgment, decision making? Who's good at the strategy? Who's really thoughtful and can develop coherence in curriculum and articulate that? Who's most effective at working in the human relations side of a department? And those are attributes that are really critical when it comes to team synergy. And so when you're looking at that person, you want to create more gender balance or age distribution balance. Those are important factors too. But what if you could then add to it these other attributes that even get at the root of the human behaviors that drive a team? And with our tool, that becomes not only is it done with efficiency, it's done with proficiency. It can be really measured quickly across a wide array of contexts to give you a concise report. And then you go out and make the decisions based on a series of information. And importantly, I'm not judging the people I already know. Now, I have some skill in that. You have some skill in that. But it still comes with bias. It still comes with my perceptions of how people operate. And I may have only limited views because of the things I've experienced, but the totality of an individual is much greater than what I've ever witnessed. And we don't always give that credit. And so a report like this really gives a full 360 view of who the person is and their actual contributions to an organization, greater than what I can see through my lens.
Rich, on the actual platform, there's three main features, if I have this right. There's the recruit, the develop, and the retain piece. And we've talked a little bit about the recruit and the develop, but it makes me think about if you get the right fit for schools, the turnover or the retention piece that allows people to stay and do really immeasurable and impactful work at your school over time increases. Is that true? Is that part of the retain piece that you're going to get a right fit? People are going to stay and do the work that you need them to do?
Significantly so. We've mapped the cost of unretained talent, meaning it wasn't the right fit. It's a $20,000 investment per teacher, and it's probably a $50,000 investment per leader. When you think about the lost momentum, you think about the actual physical cost of transitioning somebody in and out, the recruiting experience costs of all of that. If you can take a leader or a teacher and instead of having a 2-year cycle, turn that into an 8-year cycle, not only are you having a significant efficiency and cost, but think of the momentum that you're building in your school. Think about the coherence and understanding and the momentum you're getting from the growth of aligned visions. And think about also the trust that you're building in your community when people stay and commit to a group of students over time.
You've mentioned we. It's not just you and the TrueFit Talent. Could you tell us a little bit about your team? Who are some of those individuals that are helping you bring this to fruition?
We have a small but humble and robust team of individuals. I am the front and face of the organization at this point. We're lean and young and hungry. We have a technology talent team that is doing all the back-end work. And so they're responsible for ensuring that the AI is valid and reliable and is meeting the needs of the algorithm we're building. We have a researcher that we're working with, a Harvard Graduate School of Education researcher, that is ensuring that the empirical nature of this work. One of the sexy things about AI is you can say we can apply it to things really quickly, and we can look for a resume and give it a couple of key features and look what it says about the resume. We didn't want to do that. We wanted the empirical nature that we're actually going to study the things that make impact and analyze those in a valid and reliable way so that the results that come out of the report are actually something you can really rely on and that will be indicators of an individual's success. We are taking a thoughtful approach. Of course, I would love this to happen yesterday, but I am building the process with the team in a way that's been really, really designed to scale. In the end, this platform will be a full SaaS end-to-end solution that will be usable by any organization. And one of the things that is unique about what we're doing is we're not a recruitment company. We're not an organization. We're a solution. We're a technology solution for everyone. And we want to be accessible to individuals so that they can use our platform to grow themselves. We want to help schools and organizations make sense of the talent that they have and the people they want to recruit. And we want to partner with recruiting agencies to help leverage this technology so they can amplify this work throughout their agencies. For us, the goal here is to create better fits for everybody. And when that happens, we all benefit. The world of education benefits, and students in the end are the winners in this. And that's really the aim for us. And so whomever and wherever we can partner, that's what we're open to doing.
That's really exciting, Rich. I know that your network is far reaching and you have a lot of contacts around the world, but I'm wondering, how do international schools get involved? Like, how can they step into this work if they haven't heard about it already?
There's a couple of ways. We posted on our LinkedIn a way for you to reply and receive a demo so we can kind of demo the product for schools. Soon that'll be live on our website where you can request access. And then in the near future, the platform will go live on the website, and any individual, whether you're looking for a job or you just want to see how your profile looks and how you match. And then if you want a growth report as an individual to see how you can grow, you can do that. And then you're part of our database forever. And then as schools post openings or we are matched through recruiting agencies and our tools being used there, you'll be linked to those opportunities literally forever. It's a platform really that's open in a way to individuals. Our services are free for individuals to create their True You profile. And then the fees eventually are bared by organizations, schools, and recruiting agencies in partnership with us. because really what we want most importantly is individuals to understand where they are and where they stand and who they are so that they can put their best foot forward.
Excellent, Rich. If people wanted to get a hold of you, I know you've mentioned TrueFit, but where would be the best place to connect with you?
Directly, you can connect with me at rich@truefittalent.com, and I'll be happy to take your email and get in contact with you directly. More generically, connect@truefit.com will get to us as well, and we can respond in kind. Right now, we're in conversations with a variety of international schools and schools in the United States. We've already launched a few projects that we're doing to do talent assessment with schools. One we shared on our LinkedIn with Cherry Creek School District, which is one of the highest performing public school districts in the United States. And we're helping them hire future teachers and pairing them with their mentors. We're working with another district to help analyze their total team, central leadership, middle management, and help them make a sense of how to optimize that team and help people grow and adapt into what is a rapidly growing school district in the United States. And we're working with some schools on some initial searches for opportunities for new positions and talent development within organizations. So we really can provide a whole host of services, and we'd love to hear from people if they're interested in what we have to offer.
You got a lot going on, man. Maybe my last question is, I know we just came back from AAIE. What does the next 3 or 4 months look like for you? Are you just going to settle in and ride that emotional roller coaster, which is coming your way as you leave Greater behind? Or do you have other conferences, networking opportunities for you as the months come up?
Yeah, it's a fair question. 109 days left in the country of Brazil after 10 years with great emotion and all kinds of bittersweet moments. We'll conclude that experience. And so filled with thinking about the possibility of helping organizations grow and evolve. And in 2 ways, through TrueFit Talent and also through Education Accelerated and the work we're doing with rethinking strategy for schools and think tanks. We've got a variety of opportunities that are starting to come forward that really start in the coming school year. We'll be running a think tank for the Tri Association in September. I'll be at an AMISA governance conference running a pre-conference on talent development and how to look at talent differently for that organization. And we have a few think tanks designed for a couple of international schools that'll happen in October, November. And we'll continue to build out from those opportunities and events. But I love both of the things that I'm working on with great passion and interest, and see a lot of cross-sectionality between the two that really inspires me and keeps me motivated. Certainly never been a person that's been lacking energy. But right now it's full on and it's taxing me, but I'm enjoying and loving every bit of it.
Oh man, Daniel and I our heads are spinning right now. This conversation has left
we have a lot to chew on here. You've brought a lot of great. I just feel like your blue skies thinking is permeating through, TrueFit Talent as well as education. Sorry, how do you say that? Education Accelerator. So,
Daniel, I appreciate that, because if there's a couple of words that you maybe have heard in sequence, and they didn't come necessarily in this order, but when we talk in our high school about evidence of learning, and then we talk about evidence of impact in TrueFit, there's a through line, right? Which is getting at really the substance of what we're doing here and what it's really about, and getting past the superficial and getting at the depth of a human's experience, and then assessing it for opportunities to help it grow and adapt and achieve. And so whether that's doing it in the adult space of selection and recruitment and support, or it's doing it with students and growing them to be thoughtful young people, to me, it feels like, really fun, kind of noble work.
Yeah, we really want to thank you for taking the time on this call. I think you've left us more than anything with a sense of sort of joy and hope and optimism. I know there is a sense of urgency, absolutely, but your approach, and I think just who you are as a leader and as a person, is going to help galvanize all of us and move us in the right direction. So Rich, I want to thank you for taking the time. We're really inspired by the work that you're doing, and good luck in the last 3 months of your job there. We're excited about your future, and we're excited to connect again, hopefully soon.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Rich.
Thanks, Dan. Thank you, Daniel. It's an honor to be on your show. To be thought of and to be considered for this is really, really appreciative. And I hope to be invited back on again.
You will be. Thank you, my friend. Have a great day.
You.
Okay. Thanks,
Thank
Rich.
you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right. We are out. So thank you so much. That was wonderful. You've given us,
that was so good.
You've given us a gift, Rich.
I felt like at one point I was yapping on too long when I was describing everything. And so I hope I didn't. And you guys, you got done. You're like, okay, that's a lot to chew on. So I hope that wasn't too long. And if you need to go back and we can redo it and edit it again, I'd be happy to jump on again.
I appreciate that.
That's helpful for you.
No, what I meant to say is it's just like, there's just so much that you bring, and I can see you inspire a lot of people. So I can tell by the way that you speak, and I'm excited for TrueFit and what you will be able to do for talent going forward. So I really appreciate it. We ask a couple of questions at the end, if you don't mind. First of all, we do try to turn these around every about 2 weeks or so, like that. So if that works for your timeline, that's perfect. Totally fine. Like I said, we do need a bio. Is it okay that I take it from the sources that I found already, like LinkedIn, TrueFit Talent? I've seen it on Graded. I can put a bio together from there. Is that okay? If you want to, maybe if you kind of conglomerate those together and then share it with me. Because I mean, I've got a few versions of it, and there's a kind of an evolving post-graded one. But to be honest, I'd love to see what you think, what you would see it as. Might help me. Is that okay? Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. Cool. At this point, we normally ask if you could have anybody come on the show that you'd love to hear, or what are some people that you would like to hear on our show? And maybe if you have some contacts, we'd love to know some people that maybe we should interview. Oh man, what a great question. So I think there's I don't ever share the list because then somebody will get mad at me. But I think people doing really interesting things. I think Craig Johnson's doing some really remarkable work with Unconstrained and kind of the post-headship. I think that's interesting. And I appreciate his positioning and stance on things. I think, this probably is too close, so maybe it would happen down the road. But my partner, he's a business partner with me on TrueFit, but he's the chairman of Education Accelerated. His name's David Palumbo. And he's not really known to the international arena, but he's worked for Avenues for many, many years, who, by the way, now that we're off, was quite a thorn in Graded's side for many years. Yep. And we met at an AISH board event when we were doing some revisioning work, and he was doing essentially kind of a let's blow this thing up think tank. And I met him, and over a beer in Dublin, we created the partnership to have me join Education Accelerated, and also hired him to do the second think tank in 2024. He might be one of the smartest people I've ever met. He is non-traditional in how he approaches thinking. He's brilliant. He's had 19 different careers in his life. But I think you would find him extraordinary. So he's one. The other one that I think would be really cool, because he runs an incredible podcast himself, is Josh Rappoon, who runs the What School Can Be podcast. And wouldn't it be cool for a podcaster to interview a podcaster? Yeah. And talk about what schools could be is trying to do to reform in the US, and how that has implications on the international arena. Could be a different angle for you that isn't just the international school space. But there's a three just to think of. I'll plug one more if that's okay. Yeah. So there is my former chief learning officer, Shannon Beckley, is a remarkable, maybe unsung talent. And she is the principal reason why we were able to scale the deeper learning work the way we did. She's just a masterful
processor of systems and structures and putting them into terms that make sense for people. And now she's moved into executive coaching and team coaching. And, so if you wanted somebody in that kind of space, she's fantastic.
Oh, those are great. Thank you for those. That's going to be really helpful. Yeah. And as a final thought, can I just say, we start this podcast with the idea of blue sky thinking. And I feel like this one was about as close to that vision as we could have possibly imagined. I mean, you gave us so many innovative things that are coming through down the pipe, and a sense of urgency, but optimism to put them into place. So thank you. That what you just shared with us was exactly what we were hoping for when we started this podcast. And it was just a gift to start our day. So thank you, Rich.
Oh, right on, my friend. And likewise, we all love to talk, but to process is really fun. So I really appreciate the opportunity, and also the voice that you're going to lift up for TrueFit Talent. And that is invaluable to me. So I humbly appreciate that. It's been great.
You're welcome. I hope I see you again shortly. I'm sure we will.
Yes.
Right on. Yeah, definitely.
All right. Thank you,
guys.
Rich.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks,
all right,
my friend.
Have a good day.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye-bye.